Okay, I can project. So, okay, there may be other people. To be honest, we have no idea. We had no idea how many people will be coming this evening. So thank you for being here. And what we'll do is Susie make a presentation. I have something for 2 or 3 minutes because you've heard enough from me already, I think. And then we'll open it to questions. There's written questions. You want to write one down. If you want to raise your hand and ask, or raise your hand, just call it out. It's such a big group. And ask a question, and we'll see where we go from there. This is very organic. So, thank you very much, Susie, for agreeing to do this.
Thank you for setting it up.
Appreciate it.
So my day started today with a call from my niece who lives near Modi'in. She's got 5 little kids, and they don't have any safe room or anything where to live. And she said, I think I'm stressed. But she said it in a way almost like apologetic. So I said, of course first of all, you're a mother of 5 young children. So if you're not stressed, something's wrong with you. Secondly, of course you're stressed. She said, I just can't take this not knowing. Her parents were visiting. My sister-in-law and brother-in-law were visiting. She was worried about them also, whatever, getting back, being here. Is it better for them to be here, there, go back? So I think most people are stressed on some level. And if you look back at the last 10 months, which I can't even believe I'm saying 10 months, my grandson said the day that my son went in on October 7th, we had 4 of our sons that went in on October 7th into Gaza. And he said he was going to be 6th on Hanukkah. And he said to his mother, like, the first thing he said was not like, where's Abba going, whatever. He said, what's going to be for my birthday? So my daughter-in-law said, your birthday's not till Hanukkah. Like, Abba's going to be back by then. So I don't think anyone expected for us to be saying 10 months into the war even notice what that feels like and what that's like. So they have all these stress scales, of the most stressful life event. And everything that's going on in the last 10 months is pretty much top of the charts in every category. They have things like physical danger, displacement, loss, cognitive overload, distress, emotional vulnerability. It's like pretty much, change, uncertainty. We've like got all the bases covered for 10 months. So like I said to my niece, like, of course you're stressed, honey. It's very, very stressful. And to add to that, we don't like uncertainty and we don't like the unknown. From an evolutionary standpoint, that's a good thing, right? Because we're hardwired to seek safety. One of my favorite books that I quote as much as I can, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. It's a book about stress. And this guy, Robert Sapolsky, he studied the animal world. He wrote a book about like primates. He's really interesting guy. I've heard him lecture. So he said, like the zebra, he gets stressed when the lion's around because he knows that his life is in danger. So he gets stressed. But when the lion's gone, he doesn't think like, oh no, like what if he comes back again? And what am I going to do? And he just goes back to being with the other zebras and grazing and whatever zebras do. And so he doesn't get an ulcer. But we are not like that, right? We think about all these scenarios. Like right now, we're all safe, right? We don't know exactly what's going to be. There's a lot of uncertainty, but we're all safe right now. We're all, as far as I know, safe. Our loved ones, as far as I know, are safe. But in our minds, we have all these things playing out and what's going to be, and so we have this stress hormone called cortisol shooting through our body, like we're that zebra with the lion right next to us, but we're not. Again, very stressful time, but right now, we're okay. So what we want to try to do at times like this is to build up our coping skills or resilience. And a lot of that does not depend on us. Resilience has to do a lot with our mental and physical health. Genetics is a big part of it. Personality traits, right? If you've ever been to like a newborn baby room, like in the hospital, you see some are like, just sitting there very calm, and some are like crying and they don't like the light. They're like very uncomfortable. And that's a personality trait. Social support and life experiences. I think in my experience is one of the biggest things is previous life experiences, because you associate certain things with your past experience and you're not even aware that you're doing it. So the good news is that even if it's not inborn for us or genetic, we can develop it. We can enhance it. We can work on it. We can figure out skills and strategies. My husband is very into the Olympics. I like it, but he's really into it. And you watch some of these people and they make it look so easy. Obviously, it's not easy. And I'm thinking to myself, they're wonderful and great and everything, but this is what they've been doing every day, 10,000 10,000s of hours. I don't even know how many, like hundreds of thousands of hours is what they've been doing. I'm not saying that I could do it, even if I did that practice. But when you work on something, you can get good at it, even if it's not something innate or you're not born with, and you say, this is what I want to do. And so again, I don't want to be an Olympic star, but I would like to improve my coping skills, improve my resilience. People who are resilient or cope well, it doesn't mean that they don't experience distress or grief or anxiety or pain, because they do. They just are better at coping and dealing with it than other people. And I just want to say one word about that, and that's that I love the slogans at the beginning of the war and the stickers and everything that's meant to promote unity of like, be strong and, yachad ninatzeach, and, I really like it, but the downside to that is like, if I'm not feeling real like up about it, then I'm feeling kind of bad, like, well, what's wrong with me? Why aren't I feeling resilient and optimistic? And that's because it's not really a choice. It's not like I woke up today and say, well, today I'm going to be resilient. But like I said before, we can work on it. And it's something that requires us to, first of all, just know that it's not simple, meaning, think good things and good things will happen. Again, I'm not saying it's bad to be positive, but it really isn't that simplistic. But the main thing for developing good coping skills, or some of the main things, are not pushing away whatever you're feeling. And people who are resilient, it's not like they're just fine and happy all the time, but they recognize, I'm kind of feeling heavy or tired or sad or mad or whatever it is. They recognize what they're feeling. They don't push it away, but they also recognize that even if I'm feeling despondent or in despair or really pessimistic, I can also be feeling something else, maybe even like grateful. I'm feeling really worried and whatever for my sons and my son-in-law who are in the army, but look, I get to see my grandkids more, so that's like I'm like grateful for that. So seeing those two things are not easy, but that's one of the skills that people who are a little more resilient have. And there's a saying in the mindfulness world that they love, and it's a saying. It says, when we numb the darkness, we numb the light, which means when you push away negative experiences, you might not see the positive experience. It kind of comes together, right? Being able to notice one, notice the other. The good news is that most of us are resilient. And even after we experience, even if it's a prolonged traumatic event, we will bounce back and we will be able to cope. So I'm just going to very briefly, because I could give like a 2-day seminar on this topic. But
they all brought their meals and
everything.
Pillows, no problem.
So what are some ways that we can work on ourselves to cope better? So the first one is emotional regulation. Now that's partly part of what I said before, like the personality that we're born with. But it starts with just acknowledging how we're feeling. So when someone says like, "Are you okay?" Yeah, no, I'm fine, fine. I don't want to say that I'm not so fine, or I'll say, no, I don't know, I'm feeling a little anxious or a little worried or fatigued, or I can't do this anymore, whatever. Again, it's okay to say it, and nothing will happen. People think if they say it, it'll like, maybe I'll collapse, or maybe I won't be able to get out of bed if I say I'm feeling depressed. No, sometimes it even is a way of like letting things out and lightening the load. The other thing is setting boundaries. And I'm a very big fan of this. From day one in the war, I actually said, okay, I have to work. I want to be there for my kids who are in the Army, and the daughters and daughters-in-law. And everything else, I'm going to decide if I could do it or I can't. But I'm going to feel very free to say no and limit certain things and not take everything upon myself. Again, we find that to be like, how could you say no to somebody who's asking you something, or how could you limit yourself, or how could you turn your phone off for a couple hours, which I've been doing a lot more lately. And then I find that if someone asks me a question on WhatsApp and I didn't answer within like an hour, I see like two more with like question marks, like, what's the answer? I was like, dude, I turned off my phone for an hour. Okay, I mean, like, come on, it's okay. And I just want to say one thing, and I talked about this with Rabbi Chandeloff, and I actually don't agree with what he said in his talk. I mean, I agree with a lot of what he said in his talk, and that's that we can't become numb to pain, and we can't just, turn off. But in terms of getting involved and exposing ourselves to every story, to every chayal, to every person, I think sometimes we can and sometimes we can't. I feel kind of a duty to, yes, I should get to know this person and honor the memory, whatever, but I just can't always do it. And so when I don't, I say, I know this happened. I'm not going to look right now. I'll come back to it. Maybe yes, maybe no. But I think everyone has to decide for themselves, what they can do and not what they think they should do. So having said that about the boundaries, you mentioned finding meaning in things also, and I actually do think that that's something. Again, we don't know why things happen, but sometimes we find meaning in the smallest things, and certainly volunteering. A lot of people found a lot of meaning in that. A lot of people have been going out of their comfort zone, getting up early in the morning, going to pick whatever, being like for agriculture, and it makes you feel involved. It makes you feel like whatever, it gives you meaning, and it definitely gives a co-op. Another way in terms of coping better is flexibility. Okay, flexibility. Now, before I said we like things that we know because it helps us to feel safe. But sometimes there's change and things don't turn out the way that we want it to. And so the more flexible we can be and say, okay, this time it didn't work out, but maybe it will next time. Again, not, just saying, oh, it's just the end of the world because of this change. And it also means getting out of your head, which means I told my daughter, please call me when you get home, driving at night, to where she lives in the Shomron. She didn't call, then I couldn't reach her. I could start to think, well, obviously something happened, she's on the side of the road somewhere, in the hospitals, whatever. Like, no, it's my daughter, she probably forgot. She has two little kids, when she got home, she probably, whatever, there's some reason her phone went off. I mean, all those things, very, very possible, but not letting my mind go to places about things that haven't happened, because that really causes a lot of suffering, a lot more than the actual suffering that there is. And then the other part of that flexibility is sometimes reframing things, right? So I'm on my way here. I tell Rabbi Chandeloff, I'll be here to help you set up. I get caught in a traffic jam. And I just say, oh, why does it always happen? Okay, well, it doesn't always happen to me. It happens to everyone who's out there and leaves their house, right? Traffic jams happen, they're part of life. I could say, well, I'm not alone. There's obviously all these other cars on the road and they want to get there too. It'll be okay. Maybe I'll try to leave earlier next time or whatever, do something. But pain, suffering, stress, it's universal, part of life. And unfortunately, we have to accept that also with the good stuff, there's that stuff too. And sometimes people grow from things that they had that seemed traumatic, like some of these people, again, I can't imagine myself, but people who had terrible loss and then they went and started this organization or nonprofit for helping or doing this or that. I mean, they took something very tragic and they said, well, I want to do something now with it. And where they have the energy, it's really kind of incredible. But there are people like that. And the last two, I'm just going to say, one is self-care, which is a little similar to setting boundaries, but it's kind of like more knowing what I need and what I don't need, reaching out when I need to reach out, when I feel like, I'm really kind of having a hard time, I just want to talk to someone, listening to what my body's telling me, what my mood is telling me, and I make time. I'm a mindfulness meditation practitioner and I teach, and I make time for that every day. And I really feel like it's one of the things that's helped me get through this. Just having that time, knowing that I can take the time to reset my body, to find a little bit of calm. Again, it's not always this amazing experience, but even just taking that time makes my mind understand, okay, this is time for you. You are taking care of yourself. Again, however the experience is, it's a very important like signal for the brain. And the last one is social and family support. It's not so good to be alone when you're having a hard time. Again, sometimes you just feel like being alone because you need some time alone, and that's fine. But our friends and our family, very, very, very important right now. And even just this group knows that, okay, like we're not alone, right? I mean, we're all going through this. I just want to do one more thing. Is that okay? Before we take questions. And it's a very easy mindfulness practice that anyone could do anywhere. It's called grounding. And basically, you can do it when you're feeling stressed, or you can just do it when you want to kind of notice where you are and like take a moment and say, oh, I've been spacing out, and where am I, and did I take my pill, and why did I walk in this room, and blah, blah, blah. So you just basically stop, and you literally feel the bottoms of your feet on the floor. So you feel like the sensation, right? So you say, oh yeah, I feel the balls of my feet or the toes or the heels. I mean, you can take off your shoes if you want to. You don't have to. You can breathe while you do it, but you don't have to. It's just saying, okay, I just need to kind of do a little bit of a reset. I found myself, after I practiced doing it a lot, when I was standing in line at the post office and at the supermarket, which, I mean, I know that could be stressful, but I don't think I realized that sometimes my toes were even a little like this. And I was like, wow, I didn't even realize that I was just that stress of having someone like jump in front of me in line, and how am I going to do? What am I going to do? So, or I'm in a rush and the person goes to like get a cup of coffee, the cashier, whatever, all these things that would happen. So I would just say, okay, just a moment, feel your feet on the ground. You're here, you're now. Again, it's very easy to do. You don't need any equipment, right? You always have your feet with you. You could do, if you're sitting, you can even feel your hands on your legs. It's just, whatever. Taking a moment to feel the sensation of touch, of contact. And why do we call it grounding? Because the ground got you, right? I mean, it's got you, literally supports you. So the feeling that very often, if you're feeling kind of stressed or whatever, you say, wait, I just want to take a moment, throw my feet on the ground or my hands on my lap or whatever it is. So,
Excellent. Thank you very, very much. I will tell you, I hope most of you know that I try to measure my words, that I don't say something if I don't really, almost always, I don't really mean it. And I can tell you that I already walked away with something tonight. So I really, we talked beforehand in general terms, but to hear specifics was very good. The only thing I can't do, if I turn my phone off for an hour, my children think I died. So, but other than that, I did walk away from the phone the other day for 5 minutes.
Okay.
That's a big step. Big step.
Everyone's got to do what's doable for them.
Right.
So you don't say, I'm going to do it for an hour because she said, turn your phone up for an hour. You're going to say, I'm going to do it for 3 minutes. And then say, okay, could I do it for another 3? You might say no, but I did it for 3 minutes. So that's really good. Tomorrow, maybe I'll do it for 4.
Okay. Before we go to questions, I just want to mention 2 things. Baruch Hashem, the presentation that was, I think it's last week, whatever it was, upstairs, very nice response and follow up and all. And I did hear from a couple of people a comment that I wanted to address, because I think that if it left this impression with 2 people, maybe others walked away with it. And they said, oh, it was really good, it was interesting, it was inspiring. And the but was, you made it sound like all you should do is daven a little harder and be nice to people. Well, that's not exactly what I say, but okay, more or less. She said, well, I'm sorry to paint with broad strokes, but it sounds very Haredi. So that's not the point. The point was to discuss, my talk was about the spiritual perspective, and absolutely not to negate the doing, the volunteering, being there for your family, going out and helping somebody, going out of your comfort zone, all these things, and just calling somebody, whatever it might be. So yes, and absolutely, it's a very important part of this process that we're all going through. The other thing I want to say, I mentioned last night in my Tefillah class, an idea that came to me literally as almost as I was teaching, and that is that we know that it says that the Gemara in Tanit, that says when you enter Av, you diminish your joy. When you enter Adar, you're supposed to increase your joy. First of all, that means that the common denominator is there's always some joy. You don't say no joy, there's joy. So what kind of joy can we have when we're sitting here looking over our shoulders? It's very nice to see Khamenei Yamach Shemo looking up in the sky, looking for drones that are going to hopefully hit him at that funeral, the other Yamach Shemo. In any case, so there is joy. And just like Susie said, that when you're feeling these stresses and other things, there's still so much to be grateful for. That's the one thing. But there's something else. It also makes a connection, therefore, between the month of Adar and the month of Av. Not just about the joy, but something else. The month of Adar is known for being a month that we talk about nisim, but miracles, especially being saved from an enemy that wants to destroy you. Here we are in the month of Av, and the connection could be also, we can expect, we can hope for, not just to hope for, we can pray, we can ask for, we can expect that we're going to see Be'ezrat Hashem miracles as things progress in the next, whatever it is, 24 hours. If it's not 24 hours, it'll be 24 hours after that, and whatever it's going to be. I have a feeling that the people sitting in Lebanon are a lot more concerned and having a lot more seminars, and they're not walking around the streets like we're doing here today. Okay. What I'd like to do, there are a couple of questions. If you wanted to write one down, that's fine. If you want to, call out a question, that's also good. And I'm going to read the question, and we'll choose, maybe both answer depending on what kind of question it is. And we'll go from there. Any comments? No? Okay, so let's go. Okay, let's. If we believe that every person is created in God's image, how can we justify that belief when confronted with people who seem to be purely evil? Well, that sounds like you're.
I'll take that question.
Okay, go ahead. Sure, start with a real hard one. Because no, that's a very legitimate question. It's a very strong question. Like you're saying that everyone's a tzelem Elokim. Every human being is an image of God. We have to understand, though, that the people that are doing these terrible things, they chose to do it. They chose to do it. Let's talk first about the Jewish people. You're not supposed to hate anybody, right? It's supposed to love your neighbor as yourself. But there's some cases where there's a mitzvah not just it's okay, it's a mitzvah to hate a fellow Jew. And they're an absolute Russia, and they work against the Jewish people. They're apicores to the point where they go out of the way to hurt the Jewish people, and every single generation has those. We say in the Agadah that every generation they try to rise up and kill us. And unfortunately, it's every generation we have our own people that have done the same thing, unfortunately. So that there is a concept that this person is so far gone by their choices that it's almost impossible for us to look at them as a godly individual, because they're actually godless. And I don't know if I can give an answer to this. I was told once it's better to leave a great question than give a lousy answer. But I think the question is much stronger than almost any answer that someone's going to be able to come up with, because it's one of those that's a philosophical question that really is, it takes a lot of manipulation to try and come up with a straight answer for this. But I do think that we are to, at the one side, like for example, if you have, this is maybe not a good example, it popped into my head. If a person, there's going to be a talk by Karen Foyer, Bezrat Hashem, coming up about kidney donation. And you can see that a person, she's thank God alive, but there are many who have passed away. They've donated kidneys or corneas, whatever it might be, so that the body is not viable. There's nothing there, unfortunately. The person's passed away, but there's still something that's usable. So even within these, I don't want to use the word people, these things that have attacked us and done something to us, there's still something in there that they have no access to. We have no access to. Whether it's a godly spark or something else, I don't know. It's again, it's a very strong question. I think I don't know if it's a follow-up question, but it's one that's been asked in the last few days, and I've seen people floating it around online. People quote a pasuk out of context, which says that don't be happy when your enemy falls. But that's not what it really says. It does say that, because there's another pasuk that says that no, it says don't be happy when your enemy falls. There's another pasuk says ba'avod b'sha'im rina, but when evil people fall, you should be joyous. So which is it? You should be happy when they fall, or they're not supposed to be happy. So it says the word oyivcha, your enemy, is talking either about your yetzer hara, when you fall and pray to it. Don't hate it, because it's part of the process you have to go through. It could be a fellow Jew who unfortunately is a person who has done something terrible. He's a fellow Jew. You hope for tshuva. But when it comes to the non-Jewish world, with the true Rishayim, those people is perfectly fine to be happy by their death. Again, I know I did not answer the question properly or sufficient. But it's worth thinking about more. I'm sorry if it's not a totally strong answer. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Other questions?
I have two that
good.
were sent to me.
Good.
This was sent to me this morning. I have 4 kids of different ages. 2 are very sensitive and stressed from the situation. How can I help them?
I'll take that.
So number 1, I would say, how are you coping? You, the parent, or the grandparent in this case, or in our case. So first, calm yourself, right? I mean, kids pick up on things, and even if you seem calm but you're not, it's very important for you to work on yourself being calm. So I would say that's like number 1, the gadol. And the other thing is, kids like when they have questions, they like those questions to be answered. And it's very tricky. I don't know the ages of these kids, but I mean, you have to be reassuring, but also honest, and find that balance. So you can't just say, well, everything's going to be okay, and I know that same grandson, when he did turn 6 and his father was not there, and then he knew that things were happening and that people were being killed, so I just want you to know, if anything happens to Abba, I'm here, which basically brought her to a meltdown when she heard her newly 6-year-old say that. But obviously he's got, he hears about these things that happen to them, that happen to us, and tell me that it's not, right? So I remember her saying, like, he's very careful, he's in a very good whatever, whatever. I believe that Hashem will protect him. Again, she didn't say, don't worry, nothing is going to happen, but she tried to be reassuring, and that's very, very delicate. But you have to encourage questions with children. Children need to know that it's okay to ask questions, and not like, well, if we don't talk about it, then they won't worry about it. Yeah, that's not how it works with anyone, but certainly with kids. And the other thing, and this I would suggest for kids, but also for us, is a daily routine is a very, very good thing for a child. Now it's kind of tough because there's goldfish. But in terms of just, knowing that they have a time that they get up and breakfast, and again, it doesn't have to be at 7 o'clock in the morning, but they want to sleep in a little, but they have a certain routine, and the day is not just like, during a corona, there's like, the one thing you should do today is get out of your pajamas, like you have to just kind of feel like you have some kind of routine or structure for your day, and it makes you feel better. And for kids, that's definitely true. This same daughter-in-law sent me her, because my son went back in for July, August, her Luach Chofa. She has like a calendar of like what they're doing, so they know that like today is baking day, it's pool day, it's this day, and I'm like, wow, that's great if you, for her and also for them, but they like to know what's going to be. And then the last one, I would say relaxation techniques for kids. I was I had the privilege of doing some mindfulness seminars for evacuees for kids. It was very shortly after this whole thing happened, and I wanted to volunteer. And they said, you want to work with parents, but they just want a washing machine to wash their clothes with, but the kids could really use it. So come and, whatever, do it with the kids. And they really like just having something, even like for me to ask them, so what makes you feel calm or relaxed? Getting a hug from my mother. They were like 4th and 5th graders, being around my friends, playing this, doing that, eating something that I like, whatever it is. But I mean, but they liked the idea. What I did with them for the breathing is I said, pretend like you're blowing on your favorite food. Oh, that you're smelling the food, and then you're blowing on your favorite hot food, like, pizza or soup. Everybody was, so like, and yeah, it was, yeah, I'm not that used to doing it with kids, so it was like, whatever, but they really, and then some of the mothers came in at the end, and I said, let's all do it together. The mothers need it also. So that's what I would say to.
For the next question, I wanted to add a couple of things, which I'm sure you will have said also. When you said about taking care of yourself and then your kids, it's like the idea I thought of many years ago when you got an airplane, counterintuitive when they say, well, if the masks all come down for the oxygen, put yours on, and then your kids. Because you need to make sure that you're taking care of yourself in order to be able to take care of your children. And when you talk to the kids, of course, age appropriate. And also as adults, we think they need this long explanation. Years and years and years ago, so last week, I've made this mistake. We tried to explain to a child who has a question, 8 years old, 9 years old, I'm not talking teens, the young kids. And they ask us, why did so-and-so die? Whatever it might be. And we're thinking of the philosophical reasons and whatever. They say like, and you give it, they'll just a little simplistic answer. Oh, okay. They're like, it has to be not just age appropriate, but also they're not necessarily, depending on the age, looking for this, I'll give you a source sheet and we'll discuss it. That's not what they're looking for. And okay, I have a couple of things, but it's nothing to do with what you said before, so I'll come back. So you have another question.
Yeah, the other question is, how can I help myself more? I feel like I'm not. This was actually from my niece also, and from someone else who I met this morning. One of my clients who works in security in a like kind of high security job. And she said, I'm supposed to go to work later today, but I know something's going to happen. And where I work, they don't have a safe room. I could only go into the stairwell, and it's not that close because I feel like I don't think I want to go to work because I don't, what should I do? But I'm certainly not going to tell you what to do, but, just the fact that she's got to be so busy with these questions and what should I do and what about this? And then she told me she's actually works in security for the prime minister, that when he comes back, when she's working at night and he comes back, like she knows he was like in the Kiryat in Tel Aviv and he comes back at 4 in the morning, she's like, well, that's not good. Well, maybe it is good. Well, what does that mean? Where was he? Why can't I ask him? Which I found, again, this is exactly what I was saying before. The mind goes to all this. You want to know, you want to understand. I don't know where he was, I just hope he knows what he's doing. So how to help myself? Okay, I would just say that we should all know ourselves as much as we can. So certain things trigger us, make us more anxious. And some of those things we don't have control over, like when is this reaction going to be already? Please tell me. Or like, you know what? I found that it's not good for me to come home from work and I'm hungry because I get a little bit like irritated. So I'm going to try to make sure that I'm not really hungry when I come home. So maybe I'll be less triggered. That's just like an example, right? Some people, or things that make me anxious. Again, I'm speaking of the things that you can control. Another thing is, like I said before, we all have a certain amount of strength, resilience. So when I was in a difficult situation in my life, what things helped me? What coping skills? What was helpful for me? And maybe that could help me now, rather than just saying, oh, I just can't do this anymore. Again, it's a feeling that I understand, but yes, you can do this. You can, and just think of some of the things that have helped you in the past. The other thing is, how can I maintain a sense of normalcy in my daily life, right? So, I mean, again, this poor young woman who said, I don't know if I should go to work, maybe I should just take off for the week, but they need me. I can't really do that. I'm in this position. Like, you want to try to have some kind of routine, and doesn't mean every day not to go to work or every day yes to go to work. But again, to try to, do the things that you're used to doing without, again, being totally careful, being, following all the instructions of the home front, but just having some like normal things in your routine. And the last thing I would say in terms of how you help yourself is there's just any small things that you can do for yourself every day, whether it's goals of something you want to do, or just small things that make you feel good, or just, little things. And this is what I tell people who say, I really would like to meditate, but, I just can't. I just get so distracted. Everybody gets distracted when they meditate. That's, what the mind does. Just for 2 minutes, sit and notice your breath. 2 minutes. You can even put like a timer on. So you start with like very small things, and it's true with anything that we want to do for ourselves. But again, and any of these things that I mentioned earlier, also just small steps, realistic steps, things you can do. Turning off your phone for 3 minutes, and if that's too stressful, 2 minutes. Whatever it is.
Any other questions before I had a couple more? Pisha? Yeah. Okay. I want to address something that I received a few phone calls on this past Erev Shabbat, including for my own kids. Who knows what's going to be this week? We don't know. But if we are in a situation this coming Shabbat where we were this past Shabbat, where it's either happening or it's, who knows what's happening, questions were like, what about my phone? What about the kids? They're in the mamad, potentially in the mamad for all Shabbat. Who knows? What are we supposed to do? Can they do anything on Shabbat? They just sit there and look at the walls. So I have quoted Rav Yoni Rosenslag multiple times, who wrote a sefer. It's coming out in English now.
Oh, really?
He's about to publish it in English. It's called Nafshi B'Sheilati. It's a book that deals with the whole gamut of halacha and mental health. Children, people who have dementia, people who have depression, and he also spends a very big part of this book just definitions, halachic definitions. Someone says they're depressed. We know that there's a huge difference between being, I don't feel so much like I want to do anything today versus can't get out of bed. There's all kinds of different signs, but halachic definition, because it has to fall into a certain category. And I did tell certain people, based on this specific situation, that there's quite a bit of leeway when it comes to mental health, especially for children, adults too. Like if they can, have their computer already on in the mamad, and all they have to do is press a button to listen to music on Shabbat. Without the background, there was one person I actually told, after consulting with two people, because I did not feel comfortable with this one, to actually write on Rosh Hashanah last year. They have to write something down. I go, what would that do with mental health? It's not worth it today. So the idea, I'm not saying, okay, here's what you should all do, but just know that there's questions that come up for yourselves or for your children or your grandchildren. Ask. It's good to ask. And as far as the phone is concerned, I told this for myself also, that if you're going out of your house on Shabbat, and we're in a situation where it's not just, it's been until recently, but where we are right now, a little bit of a different new reality, potential reality change, who knows what's going to be. And it's either for yourself to be able to get emergency information, because you would likely hear a siren anyways, or it's because you have a child that doesn't live in the city. Maybe he or she lives in Yerushalayim, or you have a soldier who's somewhere in an area that they need to call you for moral support, mental health, whatever it might be. It's in your pocket. It's in your pocket, and I have no problem saying that. I know that people have questioned that. That's fine. But the statement, the clarification that came out, there was one statement that was a clarification this past week, which was if needed. And that means it's a personal, if needed. I can't tell you if you need it or not. You have to make that decision. But do know that there's definitely basis halacha if you have to walk around on Shabbat. Doesn't mean you walk around checking the weather and what the sports scores are. That's not what it's for. I actually did have someone ask me about Inkar. I had the phone in my hand. Can I check the scores? Absolutely.
Olympic medals are
Olympic. Well, that's okay. That's okay. Heard you can check all you need. Yeah, especially if it's Israel. But again, the point of this is not to tell you what to do or not to do, but to be aware that there are questions that can be asked, and there will be potentially some answers that will be very helpful for that. Any other questions right now? I want to make a suggestion.
I have something I want to read.
Oh, please.
Is that okay?
Yeah, but let me make the suggestion. You can read that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Suggestions like this. Tonight, the goal for tonight was to open the floor to, I'm very glad it worked out this way, to hear a lot from Susie, which was very good, very helpful. But it also in the construct of questions that were in. That doesn't mean that there won't be any other questions from this point on. Feel free. I'm sure Susie's okay with this too.
Absolutely.
Well, except when her phone's off for that hour, don't keep messaging her with question marks. Questions, ask. And if one of us is not available, there are other people in the community, outside the community. We're not the only two people around. But it's important. Some of you, I'm going to tell you one real brief story. Some of you heard the story maybe 3 or 4 times, because I tell it anytime I start a new class, which is my 8th grade teacher. Tell the story about questions. Yeah. So when I was in 8th grade, the teacher I had should not only have not been a teacher, he shouldn't have been a human being.
How do you read it?
I know, I don't, I do it. Yes, I'll lie down on the couch. I have my Mukhadi card on me. Actually, I don't, it's at home. And I've always been an inquisitive person. To this very day, I want to know why, how come, and how is this word? So in 8th grade, I kept asking questions in class, like, how come this, and what if that? The Rebbe said, Zev, don't ask any of these what if questions. So I kept asking. He says, listen to me. I can still hear that voice. If you ask another what if question, I'm going to throw you out. So I did. And he did. And I was standing in the hall. And I was mortified. 13 years old. And I thought, like, really? He threw me out. And the principal walked by. And he asked me, what am I doing in the hall? Because that's the times where kids actually were in class all the time. And I couldn't even answer him. I felt so ridiculous. I remember thinking, that if I ever became a teacher, I would tell my students first day, ask questions. Doesn't mean I know the answers. I didn't know the answer for something that I won't know. There's plenty I won't know. But ask. Don't ever stop asking. And I tell every student I teach, every group I teach where there's questions and answers, don't ever stop asking questions. And that, just one little incident was probably 2 minutes. It really informed who I became in the way I teach. And the downside could be that one of the things you're talking about also is we have to be careful in bringing these patterns of thought that how we dealt with trauma possibly or stress in the past that may not have been so good, how we might recycle that and use it the wrong way. So it's another thing to be mindful of as well. Yes, you wanted to read something. Go right ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, okay. So I found this story, which I wasn't able to get the book, but I was able to print out. It's a children's story. I think it's more for adults, but anyways, it's called The Hugging Tree. So I'm gonna read the story. On a bleak and lonely rock by a vast and mighty sea sat a lonely little tree where no tree should ever be. How she got there, no one knew. She sprouted stems and little leaves as any tiny seed will do. There's hardly any dirt for me, no breeze, no birds, no bees, but I'll do the best I can make this rock my home. Her tiny roots pushed right night and day, and bit by bit, the rock gave way. Smidge, an inch, foot, then two. She grew and grew and grew and grew. The ocean hugged the rocky shore. I like you near me, little tree. Let's keep each other company. Soft gold sunbeams kiss your crown like warm honey pouring down. At night she raised her branches high to greet the moon up in the sky. I wax, I wane, I ebb, I flow, I cycle through from full to thin, and when I'm done, start again. That's how life is, One summer, a pair of loons landed on her canopy, a pretty tree and a sparkling sea. Shall we make this place our home and raise our baby chicks right here? The little tree warmed up with pride. She spread her branches high and wide. I'll be your home, she replied. And can you tell me if you've seen the forest where my family grew? We've built our nest in trees like you quite far from here. And so you blew many nights and many days. They built their nest, they laid their eggs, and soon 2 baby chicks were born. Summer passed, autumn, the little tree turned red and gold. The winter came with howling winds and cutting cold that broke her boughs. The loons flew south, sea all ice, the rock all snow. The moon was lost in thunderclouds. Mighty cliff, hold me tight, don't let me blow away. Little tree, with all my mind, I'll hold you close night and day. Storms will come, storms will go. At last the sun melted the snow. But now the tree couldn't grow. The storm had torn her roots. The moon gazed down and softly said, sometimes we lose our way, but with some help again, maybe we can start again. And soon a boy came running by, skipping stones into the sea. When he saw the little tree, he stopped. He touched the leaves. He felt the ragged roots. He shook his head and said, I could bring you just what you need. I can help you, little tree. Every day the boy came back carrying a full backpack from his back. He took a tin, poured out rich brown earth, packed the roots, he tucked them in, planted flowers around the tree, and made a path for all to see. Now everyone will know that even on a granite cliff, a little tree can grow. Now every day new people stop to rest beneath the tree and dream of things we all dream of. To love, to share, to give, to dare to grow, just where you are. And to this very day they come, from splendid sunny rock by a warm and bright blue sea, a great big hugging tree grows, just where she was meant to be.
Nice.
So besides the fact that I absolutely love this, and I felt myself choking up even though I've read it before, I don't like happy ends, and I'm not doing this just to say let's all feel good and join hands and sing Kumbaya and everything like that. I really, that's not what it is. But in the name of coping and resilience, this story for me gives hope that even in the face of adversity and winds, right, this tree somehow hung on, and was able to accept help from others, which just to strengthen that point that you said, meaning, this little boy came and whatever, he talked, to the sea and the moon, and everybody was trying to go, and a plug for mindfulness. and that the roots, even though his roots were taken out, he was able to reground himself, which I really do believe in. I really do believe in our power to heal. Again, it doesn't mean everything's wonderful all the time, but there are times that we can surprise ourselves and, kind of make a comeback, like, a little hugging tree.
Thank you very much, Susie. And we'll give her a plug. It wasn't planned, but Susie does seminars and does workshops and all kinds of things. So if you're interested in mindfulness, if you know what it is, that's great. If you don't, even more so to look up what it is and be in touch. Again, the door is open. Please definitely feel free. Thank you very much for being here tonight. Very much. I appreciate it. I'm sure you appreciate it as well. And let's just hope. And obviously, one of the biggest coping skills we all have is tefillah. The one thing we really do without fail have the ability to do is to lean on Hashem for our strength. Have a good evening, and let's hear some Besorot Tovot.
Amazing.
Thank you very much, everybody.